Hello everybody, it's Crystal. So today I'm going to show you how to crochet this beanie. So this beanie is made with short rows, the short row technique. And if you've never done that, I'm going to show you how today. There's many different ways that you can do it, many different variations that you can do. I love making short row beanies. I love the crown on them is, the top of them is really neat. So I did a pretty basic one here. All you really need to know how to do is single crochet. So seeing the top of it there, this is a 6-section. And like I said, they're all made differently. It depends on, who's making them. But this is a 6-section short row, so you can see that the sections here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And now it is worked, this particular one, it's like worked in a long panel, but the rows are short, and I'll show you what I mean by that in case you don't know. And it's seamed. Now it is sewn up the side. Now had I used a solid color, you would not be able to see the sewing job that I did. But since my yarn is striped, you can see where my yarn broke right here, and here's my seam. So it didn't flow together. Had it been a solid, you probably wouldn't have been able to see the seam that well. So once all the 6 sections of short rows are made, you seam it up the side, and then there's this tiny, little tiny hole at the top, hardly anything, and you just cinch it together. I'll show you how to do that. And then the crown lays nice on your head. It's not like a bottom up beanie. I particularly don't like to make beanies bottom up. I rarely do it because I don't like the gathering at the top. Sometimes I do, but hardly ever. Almost all my beanies are top down. Or I have a lot that I make short rows. I just never taught it before, but I thought, well, I might as well just teach it now. Like I said, there's many different ways you can do it. This is a very simple version, but the crown is not bumpy on top, so it lays nice and flat on your head when it comes to short rows. And I'll show you why it's called short rows. So like I said, this is a 6-section short row. They're all different. So you start with a chain, and then let me find a section here. Now, here. Okay. So you start with a chain, and you make it so long. I'll tell you the chain amount and everything. And then when you get up to a certain amount, you stop. And there's a bit of a chain dangling, all right? That's why it's called a short row, because you don't go all the way up. You do eventually, but you don't do in that moment. And you work your way back down, and then back up, and you add a couple stitches to that chain, and then back down, and back up, and you add a couple stitches until there is no more chain. And then that section is done. And then what you do is you would move on to another section. You don't start a new chain. It's one solid piece. But what you do is you start another short row. So this piece right up here, is done. You finished it out. So when you make it back down, you start your short row again in the same manner that you started the other one. Up. So however many stitches I tell you. Stop. Back down. Up, add a couple stitches off this long one here, back down, up, add a couple, back down, up, add a couple. I'll tell you the numbers, and everything, until there are no more to add. All right, and then what you do, that completes a section. And then you start your short row section again. Right here you can see it. On the one that you just finished out, this long one, you start your short row again. Here it stops. These are all left unworked, until you slowly work them row by row until you finish out your section. And then you start short row section again. That's it. That's the short rows. And like I said, this is a 6-section short row. There's all different types, all different stitches. I wanted to keep this one pretty basic. Now this one is really stretchy because it's made with single crochet. It's a single crochet rib stitch. Single crochet in the back loop. That's what it is. And so it's super stretchy, and as you can see in the picture, it will flip like that. This will fit, let's see, my head's about 19 inches or so. It fits me just fine. And my mannequin has a 22.5 inch head. Fits her just fine. So I'm going to say like 18 to 23 inches. It would be sufficient. It is super stretchy. So I think whenever it's fully made, it's like maybe 20 inches or so. But don't worry, because it's made to stretch. That's just how it is. And from here down is approximately 10 inches. And like I said, it has about an inch and a half flip fold that I wanted to add to it. Like I said, there's all different styles with these. I have so many I've made myself. So I like the way the short rows hats crowns are, the way they fit. I have so many different styles I've made myself. My husband likes the short rows as well. Those are his favorite. But yeah, maybe I don't know why I never taught him before. But anyways, so this one right here was made with Red Heart Super Saver stripes. In the color retro stripes, I do believe, right? Is that correct? Yeah, retro stripes. You're probably going to need about, there's 482 yards. This is a medium weight number 4 acrylic. Probably going to need about, this is a guesstimate, probably about 230 to 250 yards maybe of 4-weight yarn. All right, it doesn't have to be this yarn, but you need to use a 4-weight yarn. 4-weight, doesn't matter what brand that you use, it just needs to be a 4-weight. And then the hook, doesn't matter what your 4-weight says either as far as hook size goes, use the H. It's a 5mm, okay? That's what we're going to be using with our 4-weight yarn. If you want it bigger than 23 inches, I would just jump a hook size to a J. Okay, that is if you want it to be larger than 23 inches, then you could go up to a J hook. If you have a smaller head, like maybe you have a petite size head, and then you could probably jump down to a G. Then do that. But I would say most people would stick in the 5mm area. I would say. But that's how you can adjust the size if you want it different than what I mentioned. So that's what I used for that hat. That's what the hat looks like. I think it's cool. I really like it. In the video, just the beginning part, I'm going to be showing you in this yarn. I got this in a mystery bag from Mayan brand. It's a 4-weight acrylic as well. I don't even know. They don't even sell it anymore, I don't think. But yes, that's what I'm going to be showing you with in the video. I thought it'd be easier to see than this one. All right, and like I said, had I used a solid yarn, the seam would not have been quite as visible. But I still think it looks really nice. So you guys want to do it? Yeah, I will say it is a bit time consuming, but that's okay. Some things are worth the wait. A short row beanie for me is always worth the wait. Let's do it. So let's go and get started then. So we're going to start off with a long chain. Not real long, I guess. You want to do a chain of 44 chains. All right, 44. And then we are going to do a single crochet in the second stitch from our hook. And we're going to count that as single crochet number 1. Now we want to do 31 single crochets across the chain. Okay, so that would be number 1. And we're going to work till we get 31. Here's 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, so I'm going to see you when we get 31. All right, you're going to have some left. All right, but I'll see you at 31 single crochets. Okay, so I have done 31 single crochets, and what I want to do now is slip stitch into the next one. Do not make your slip stitches tight at all, because we will have to work back into them. All right, and you don't want to make them tight, because then it gets hard. It just gets difficult. So slip stitch into the next. So we did 31 single crochets and 1 slip stitch, and now you should have 11 chains here hanging around. All right, that's it. Leave them hanging. That's why it's called a short row, because we didn't go all the way up. We will, but not this time. So what we're going to do now for row 2 is we are going to chain 1 and turn our work. Now from here on out, we will only be working in the back loops. That's it, back loops. All right, back loops only from here on out. The one furthest away from you. Okay, the one that's way up here. I don't know if you call that the front loop, back loop, whatever it is. The one that's furthest away from you. And we have to go into that slip stitch that we just made. So right there, and we have to go into back loop, front loop, whatever you call it. The one that's furthest away from you. So you see how the loop has 2, each stitch has 2 loops. You want to go to the one that's farthest away from you, all right? All right. Some people call it front loop and some people call it back. I don't know. There it is. You gotta go. So make sure you hit that slip stitch. That's your first one, and we're going to single crochet into it. Back loop of it. I'm going to be calling it the back loop. And now we're going to hit the back loop of each of the single crochets that we did until we get to the end of the row. So it's also very important when you're doing this is to keep count. It is just single crochets, but it's important to keep count because it's easy to get lost with those slip stitches. So we did a chain of 31, and then we did a slip stitch. And then when we turned our work, we worked into that slip stitch. So now we're working a single crochet in the back loop of every stitch. And when we get to the end, we should have 32 stitches because we added that slip stitch, all right? So I'm going to continue row 2 until I get to the end of the row. And you will have 32 single crochets in the dangly here. Don't worry about that. We're not going to count that right now when you make it to the end of row 2. All right, I've made it to the end of row 2, and I have my 32 single crochets. So we're going to start row 3. We're going to chain 1 and turn our work. Okay, that chain 1 down here, it doesn't count as a stitch. So we're going to be working in the back loops again, all the way up. We got to go into this very first one though. Hit that back loop of that very first one. Okay. And then we're going to continue working 1 single crochet in the back loop of every stitch all the way up for row 3 here until we make it up to here. And I'll meet back up with you, all right, when we make it up to here. And then we'll work a couple of these stitches. All right, so I'm coming up here to the end here, and I'm going to do a back loop in each of these single crochets. Now the last one is sometimes, especially the further along you go, it gets a little harder to see because it's the slip stitch that we went into, but as long as you do that slip stitch loose, it'll be all right. Back loop of that single crochet there. So we have 32 stitches. Okay, that's row 3, and then we're going to turn it into 34. So what we're going to do now is we're going to drop down to this chain here. In the first unworked one, not this one, you can tell it's been worked, but the first unworked one, we're going to drop down and we're going to single crochet into it. Like that. And then in the next stitch, we're going to slip stitch. So we just added, make sure it's a loose slip stitch though, so you can work back into it. We just added 2 stitches now, and that ends row 3. So for row 4, we're going to chain 1 and turn our work, And we're going to work a single crochet into the back loop of every single stitch, including this very first slip stitch right there. Just like that. And when you make it to the end, you're going to have 34 stitches now. Every section, there's 6 sections I mentioned. Each section has 14 rows. And you can see that I'm working down right now towards the end. Whenever you work down, let me say, whenever you work up a row like we just did, that's when you add your stitches. How we added that single crochet and we added the slip stitch. And now we're just working down, and we're working single crochets in the back loops of those stitches, the ones we added and the ones that were there before. So working up the row, we add, working down, we're just single crocheting in them. All right, so this is row 4. I'm going to continue all the way down, and we'll have 34 when we make it to the end. Okay, made it to the end of row 4. 34 stitches is what I have, plus our little chain down there. It's okay. Now we are going to chain 1 and start row 5, and we're going to be working up. So we are going to work the 34 stitches in the back loop, single crochets, and then when we get up here, we're going to be adding 2 more, because whenever we work up, we always add. So we start the very first stitch here in the back loop, and you single crochet, and I'm going to continue working up, putting 1 single crochet in every stitch, and I'll meet back up with you when we make it towards the top there near our chain. Okay, remember to keep count. Okay. All right, I'm coming to the end of row 5, and remember we should have 34 before we add any more. So I've done 32 and I have 2 left, and I know this one right here always is the one that's always kind of hard to see, but you got to make sure you get that one. Okay, that's why it's always good to count. I've counted 32. This one will be 33, and this one right here, you got to go in that back loop of that, because that's that weird one, the slip stitch we single crocheted into, and that's going to make the 34 that we had. And since we went up, we're going to add 2 more to it. So we're going to come down here to this chain, and into the next chain that's unworked, we are going to work a single crochet into it, and into the next one a slip stitch. Make sure you make that loose. So we added 2 more there at the end there of round 5. So we took our 34 and we made it 36. Now for row 6, we're going to chain 1 and turn our work, and we're just going to put a single crochet into every stitch, always in the back loop, starting with that slip stitch. All right, right there. And that's the one that always looks weird to me anyways. So I'm going to work down, putting 1 single crochet into every stitch, working in the back loop until I make it down to the end of row 6. We have 36 stitches. All right, see you at the end. All right, I made it to the end of round 6. I'm out here, down here at the bottom, and I got 36 stitches. So row 7, I'm going to chain 1 and turn, and I'm going to work up 1 single crochet in the back loop, starting with this very first one here, back loop, and I'm going to work up 36 stitches that we just did, and then we're going to add 2 more when we get up there. Okay, so make sure you count. Back loop, single crochet all the way up until we get up to here. Don't forget this guy. He's a buster. He's a buster. Don't forget him, all right? He's going to be your 36th one. Okay, I'll meet you up here. meet back up with you right here. Your 36 single crochet in the back loop, and then we'll add a couple more. All right, I'm coming up and I'm getting ready to do my 36 stitch here, and remember he has to go in the back loop of this guy right here. It's easier if you just, this last stitch always on the end, if you just flip it, you'll see it then. Sometimes he's tight, sometimes you need to flip him, but there he is. Okay, that's 36 that we did on the previous row. We're on row 7, so we went up, so we have to add 2 more. So we're going to come down here to this chain, and the first stitch that's not worked, we are going to single crochet into it. And then the next stitch that's not worked, we are going to slip stitch, not too tight, like that. So we took the 36 and we made a 38 at the end of row 7. So for row 8, we're going to work back down. We're going to chain 1 and turn, and we're just going to put a single crochet in the back loop of every stitch that we just made. The 36 that we previously had and the 2 that we just made. So first one being that slip stitch, front loop of it, the buster stitch. I call him a buster. It's a buster. He's hard to get to sometimes. There we go. And then the back loop of the remaining stitches, and this is row 8. And when you make it back down, we will have a 38 single crochets. All right, make sure you keep count. See you at the end. All right, I made it to the end of row 8, and I have the 38 stitches, and you can kind of see how our work is taking a slant. Okay, we're going to go ahead and do row 9, I'm sorry, chain 1 and turn, and we're going to be working up. So we're going to work single crochet in the back loop of every stitch, starting with the very first one. All right, in the back loop of the 38 that we just did from the previous row, and then when you make it up here, I'll meet back up with you. You'll have 38 once you get to hit this stitch here, and we'll add a couple more. All right, see you there in a second. Okay, I've come to the end of round 9. I have 38 stitches from the previous row, so we're going to add 2 more now. So we're going to drop down to the next empty chain, and we're going to single crochet into it. And then we're going to slip stitch into the next empty one. So we took our 38, we added 2 more now. So we now have, counting that slip stitch there, make sure you do them loosely, 40 at the end of row 9. Okay, 10, we're going to chain 1 and turn, and we're just going to work a single crochet in those 40 stitches, back loop. First one being that slip stitch. There he is. And every single crochet all the way down. When you make it to the end of a row 10, you will have 40 stitches. See you there in a second. Okay, into row 10, 40 stitches. 11, we are going to chain 1, turn our work. Gonna add some stitches on this row because we're working up. But first we have to do a single crochet in the back loop of those 40 stitches that we just did on the previous row. All right, so I'm gonna work my way up. Make sure you keep count, and I'll see you. We're on row 11 now. All the way up here. When we hit this guy, that'll be 40. All right, I'll see you there. Okay, I've come up here, row 11, 40 single crochets, and if you look at your chain, you have 3 stitches left. That is correct. So what we're going to do is into the next empty one, we are going to single crochet, and then into the next empty one, we are going to slip stitch. And we turned our 40 stitches into 42 at the end of round 11, and we have 1 left, and that's what we're going to have. Okay, one left. So we're going to do row 12, chain 1 and turn, and we're just going to do single crochet in the back loop of all those stitches, starting with the 2 that we just added, that slip stitch there, and all the remaining ones. So when you make it to the end of round 12, you're going to have 42 stitches. Alright, see you in a second. Okay, into round 12, 42 stitches to 13. We're going to chain 1 and turn. So we're going to be working our way back up. So we're going to work single crochet in the back loop of these 42 stitches. And then I'm going to show you what we're going to do at the last chain. Alright, so go ahead and I'll meet single crochet in the back loop of all those. And I'll meet up with you at our 42nd stitch here, the last one before this last chain. Alright, so I've made it to, I've done my 42 stitches here on row 13, and we have one empty chain left, and what we're going to do into that last one is single crochet, and that's going to bring our stitch count up to 43, and that is what we need. That 43 is the tallest that our piece gets. So it starts down here at 31, and then we add a slip stitch, and then we build it all the way up to 43. So that's row 13. So row 14, we have to chain 1 and turn. Row 14 is the last row of the repeat, because remember I said there's 14 rows in each section. So this, once this row 14 is done, this one section will be finished. Go ahead and single crochet and back loop of every stitch. So make sure you get that single crochet that we just did. So when you make it to the end of row 14, you'll have 43 stitches. All right. I will see you in a second. All right, so I've made it to the end of row 14, and I have 43 stitches, and this is the end of one section, and you need to do a total of 6 of them. So what we need to do is start from row 1 again, but the only difference is we're not going to be starting with a chain this last row that we did, and we're just going to work on that. All right, so I'm going to start over. Since this section is finished, this is one section, we're going to start section number 2, and it's going to be 1 through 14 again. And every time you repeat row 14, you always have 43 stitches, and then you know it's time to start over again. You'll be able to tell anyways, because you know you'll be up at the point. There won't be any more stitches to work in. So we're going to start over again with the next section, which I'm just going to count row 1. We're going to chain 1. Now we're going to do the internal work. We're going to do the same thing that we did on row 1 with a couple of exceptions. We didn't make a chain. We're not making a chain. And we're going to be working in the back loops. Okay? But we're going to work in the back loops of 31 stitches. Just like row 1, we worked 31 stitches. That's what we're going to do now. So I'm going to work 31 single crochets in the back loop. This is going to be row 1. We're starting of section 2. It's just like row 1 down here, except for we're not working in a chain. We're working along our first section. So go ahead and do 31 single crochets for row 1, and I'll see you once we get there. Remember, we're always working in the back loops now, right? From here on out, back loops always. Alright, so I've done 31 single crochets, and then what we want to do is the same thing that we did on row 1, is we are going to slip stitch into the next, but it's the back loop. So always keep those slip stitches loose so we can work back into them. Like that. And you should have 11 empty stitches. just like we had 11 empty chains. Now every time we do a section and we start row 1 over, we'll have 11 empty stitches here. And we're just going to do the exact same thing, filling them up in the exact same manner that we just did right here. So we had 31 single crochets, and then we did a slip stitch, so that brought it up to 32 for row 1, and then we're going to chain 1 and turn for row 2, and we're going to do the same thing that we did down here. We're just going to slowly work our way up. Make sure you go into that slip stitch, back loop of it, and single crochet, and back loop of every one. So when you make it to the end of row 2, you're going to have 32 stitches. All right, and we're just going to keep repeating rows 1. And we're on row 2 now, what we did down here, through 14. And when that's finished, we will have another section made. And then we'll just start over and do what we just did again with row 1, and it slowly, gradually gets bigger. All right, I'll see you here at the end of row 2. Remember to count your stitches. We should have 32. Okay, end of row 2, 32 stitches. We're going to do chain 1 and turn. We're going to do the same thing we did on row 3 down here. For row 3 right now is single crochet in the back loop of every one all the way up to here. Okay, so I'll meet right up here with you. I'll meet up with you when we make it right here. Just single crochet in the back loop of those 32 stitches. Okay, row 3, I have done my 32 stitches, and remember, every time we go up a row or every odd number row, we add stitches. Okay, and we're going to add 2. So we're going to come down here to this this row down here, and we are going to single crochet in the back loop of the next empty stitch, single crochet into it, same thing we did down here, and then we're going to slip stitch into the back loop of the next empty stitch, except for before we did it on a chain. Now we're just doing it on a row. So that took that 32 stitches and made it 34. Now it's only every time you repeat row 1 and every time you repeat row 13 that you only add 1 stitch to the row. All the other rows in between, when you add a stitch, you add 2 stitches. All right, 2 stitches in between the first and the 13th row. So we took 32 and we made it into 34. So we're just gonna, for row 4, we're just gonna chain 1 and turn and back loop and go into the back loop of that slip stitch there, single crochet, and we're going to single crochet all the way down. You have 34 stitches. And now this is what we're going to continue doing. All right, so I'm going to go down, and I'll have, for row 4, I'm going to have 34 stitches. I'm going to turn my work for row 5, which will be an odd row, and I'm going to work those 34 stitches, and then I'll come down. Since it's an odd row, I have to increase or add stitches, so it'll be a single and a slip stitch here, and that'll make it 36. And then for row 6, we'll go back down and single crochet in the back loop of those excuse me, of those 36. Row 7, we're gonna turn it around and we'll single crochet in the back loop of those 36, and we're gonna add 2 more on row 7, which will be a single and a slip, which will make it 38, and back down. And when you come back up on row 9, add 2 more, single and a slip, which turned out 38 into 40, back down on 10, back up on 11, add 2 more, single and a slip, which turned that 40 into 42, and you will have 1 that remains. When you go back down, back up for 13. Remember, 13, there's only going to be 1 left. Single crochet in that last guy, okay? Sometimes he's hard to see, but you'll get him. Back loop of him. Okay? And then back down, row 14. Finishes up. That's 2 sections done. And then you start over again with row 1, start section 3. keep doing that until you have a total of 6 sections. And then we will be able to sew it together. And it's, I'll show you, I'll meet up with you, we'll sew it together, okay? Okay, I've done 6 sections here. I'm going to give you a measurement. Remember, this stuff will stretch too as well. It should be around 19 to 20 inches, I think. Yeah, here we go. We're just going to sew it together. So when you tie off, leave a long tail. I probably have like 3 or 4 feet. You know, better safe than sorry. Since I didn't use a solid color yarn, if you did, it really doesn't matter. But if you didn't, if there's a side that you prefer, put the wrong side facing. And we're going to seam it up. We're going to sew up the side. Actually, they both pretty much look the same to me. But since I did use a striped yarn, my seams are not, see, they didn't end the same color. So, that's okay. Seams don't bother me. I like to have seams in when I crochet clothing. I won't crochet like tops and stuff without seams. No, I would not. I won't do it. Okay. I'm just gonna go. Let me look at this here. Into the back loop of this one right here, and then into a loop on the back loop on this one, I guess. And go through, and then I'll flip it the other way. Although the seam will be visible, and then I'm gonna go on this one, and then the back loop on this one. Because like I said, my colors didn't end on the same. If you're using the same color, I doubt you're gonna have a visible seam. If seams bother you, I know they do. Some people, like I said. Not me. Alright, so I'm just, I just do not like this. If there's another way that you want to do it, you do it any way you want, just to get it seamed up here to the top. As neatly as possible, as you can. And all I'm doing is matching my stitches up. Taking that back loop off the screen side of mine. Do that. Just going through that one only. And then this kind of loop right here on the starting chain or whatever that was. Going through that. And then the same. That. Let me see what it looks like on the other side real quick. Because I said I'm going to flip mine the other way. Although it really doesn't matter, I guess. Yeah. I should have used the same. Oh, that don't look bad at all. See? Nice and clean. See? That's a seam I don't mind right there. You can't tell that they're different colors. Nice. So when, it don't look the greatest on this side. But if it was the same color yarn, like I said, you wouldn't be able to tell. But since it's not, I'm going to do it this way. Going through that back loop on my last one. And then this is the starting chain. Back loop on that. I'm going to do that back and forth until I make it to the top. All the way up. And then you see where this is where we started. Our starting chain kind of curves up. This piece over here, it just follows the curve. Alright, like that. See that? And then there's going to be a little bit of a hole at the top there when we get there. And we'll just sew that up too. So I'll meet you when we make it right up here to the top to sew up that hole. Alright? Alright, so you can see how I'm just following this was where we started our starting chain. And because it kind of had a little curve to it. It was supposed to. And you can see I'm just following it. Right along with that last row that we did. And it will line up just like it's supposed to. Sewing it all the way up. Alright, so I will meet you once that's all sewn up. And like I said, we're going to have a bit of a hole up here. And we'll go ahead and take care of that. Alright, I made it to the top. So here's our beginning chain. hide that in. But so I've seamed all the way up here. I have not flipped it right side out or anything like that, but I'm just gonna kind of neatly go around like this, kind of around the outside edge, so I can kind of, you know, gather it up and then pull it. Yep. So I'm just going in and around, sorry, that outside edge of it. If you want to do it another way, that's fine. Hey, whatever way gets it sewn up, that's what I think. Whatever works for you. May not work for me, but if it works for you, do it. And vice versa. So I'm just going to pull on that a bit. And I'll probably have to cross over a couple times too. But just get it sewn down a bit. Sorry, I'm not meaning to go off camera. It's incredibly hard to crochet looking through a camera. I always try my best not to go off of it. So I'm going to go around with this, and then I'm going to go around with the tail, this tail too. Close it up the rest of the way, and at the same time I'll be hiding that tail. Until, see, it's pretty much closed now. But yeah, I'll do that. Go around with the other color just to give it some extra security. And hide that tail too. And then I'm going to flip it right side out. Actually, I'm going to take a quick peek right now. Hope for the best, huh? I gotta hope for the best. Okay. I think my seam turned out pretty dang clean. I'm happy with that. Now, if those two colors actually faded together correctly, you wouldn't be able to see a seam at all. You know what I mean? It's just because the color broke. You know, if they would have landed the same like they're supposed to, and the fade wouldn't have broke, there would have been no visibility there at all. Oh, and there's that top looking nice. There it is. I got a little bit tiny hole there. I'll use the end of my tail to sew that shut, and you won't even be able to see anything. It'll be just like that. I'm gonna flip it back. Flip it back. All right, let me finish that up. All right, all finished. I think it looks good. Here's the top. I think it was worth every bit of time that it takes to make a hat like this. They're always awesome looking. Whether you make them in solid or different colors, I mean, they're super cool. I really like this one. I think it turned out nice. Like I said, that seam really turned out nice. If that would have just been a perfect fade there, it would not even have been noticeable. I don't really care a little about that. But then you can fold up that brim a bit. You get about an inch and a half fold on there. And then there you go. You're ready to wear it. I like it. Oh guys, hope that you guys enjoyed my video and they would follow along okay. Makes a nice hat. It does. Nice, strong, sturdy hat. Warm. Good for man, woman, anybody. So, if you did enjoy, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe button, and I'll see you on my next one, okay? Alright, take care. Bye, guys.